Hi and welcome back to another Unity C# tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to look at how to improve performance using the Unity profiler. That's this thing right here. And we'll be using some real-world examples from the game that I'm working on, A Lost Soul. If you don't already have a copy of AnyRPG, you can pick one up from anyRPG.org/downloads in both Unity package and source code format. You can also find the Lost Soul game available for download at the same page. So let's get started. In the last episode, I was making some event system performance improvements. If you watched that episode, you'd see I had like 1,000 events being fired off every time that my character changed their weapon, and that wasn't really a very desirable outcome. So I refactored the event system to make it a little better. And at the end of the episode, at the end of the last episode, I had the Unity editor crash, and I just investigated that offline and find out that I made a stack overflow by basically just accidentally recursively calling a same function over and over with no limit. So I fixed that, and now if we hop into the game, I can demonstrate that we've got a lot less prerequisite condition calls happening. So we'll just load up the game here. But I will show you that there is some additional performance that we're going to see. And so let's load up the girl here. And I've got the Unity profiler running over in another window. And so I'll keep it off screen, and then I'll just pause the game as soon as I hit the point that I want to demonstrate, and then we'll just review what's in the profiler there. So what I want to do is I'm going to pause the game, and you can see we had a bunch of prerequisite conditions met. If we unpause it right now and we just equip a different sword for her, then you can see basically we didn't really have any prerequisite condition met calls. These were related to something else spawning in the level. So that helped a lot, but there was a bit of a spike there. And if we look at the profiler here, we can see that we had some sort of like long frames here. And in one of the frames, I'll see if I can find it right here. This is fairly decent one, I think. In one of the frames anyway, basically, we end up having a big lag spike due to just the Unity event system update method. And what I found is that basically, let's go back in and just uncomment this method right here. Even though we had improved the event system so we were no longer getting 1,000 events per weapon equip and unequip, there's still about 198 notifications happening. So let's just comment out the prerequisite conditions.isMet again, so we can see those other events happening here. So every time that my character equips and unequips a sword, they can learn abilities from it, and those abilities are causing event notifications in a not very efficient way. So let's just take a look at that. We will just equip this sword right here, and you can see if we're running around, basically there's a nice lag there. And this is because we're sending out hundreds of event notifications for learning and unlearning abilities. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it so that we're subscribing directly to, and you can see these outgoing here. This makes it a little more obvious when I have the debugs in them, because you can see these giant spikes. There we go. Let's see. event system.update, 512 milliseconds. So it took basically half a second for those event system updates to go out. And that's partially because as soon as you add debugs to them, it makes them a lot quicker. But this profiler is really good for looking through and seeing, like, for every frame of your game, how long that frame took to render and then what components were actually causing it to go slowly. Before we fix this, I just want to demonstrate another really interesting thing that I found as well when it comes to some of the lag in the game, and that was actually due to the Unity UI text. The default UI text actually uses a font cache, and that can cause some significant lag at certain points in your game. So I'm just going to find a channeler here in the Temple of Ancient Energy, and we are going to demonstrate, basically see if we can demonstrate this lag. So if I look at this mummy here and I'm going to attack it, and if I get a crit, you'll notice some UI lag, hopefully. So that was a normal one. Normal one. See if I can get a crit. There we go. That one wasn't a crit actually, but it did cause some UI lag. So when we look at this, what we can see is, I'm just going to type in the word font here, and you can see this Unity font cache font for text, 26 calls costing 299 milliseconds. So this is because of the default UI text, and if you use TextMesh Pro, TextMesh Pro actually renders stuff in advance. So you can basically go to Window TextMesh Pro Font Asset Creator, and if I choose a font file here, like for example my Liberation Sans, and then I hit Generate Font Atlas, now it's gone and pre-rendered all of my fonts for me. So unlike the regular Unity UI text, if you use TextMesh Pro, then you're not going to get basically lag every time that you display a font in a different color or a different size. And that's pretty much what was happening there, was that it was displaying basically yellow text instead of white text and messing with the size, and that's what caused this big UI lag spike and causing that that frame halt. So we're going to fix both of these problems. Let's start with the ability problem first, and then we will move on to fixing the UI text problem. So for the ability problem, we've got these ability prerequisites here, and they are subscribing to the system event manager, and they're getting notified anytime there's any ability changed. And we don't actually want that. We can basically have them subscribe to the ability that they want directly so that there's no extra notifications going out. So let's go ahead and do that. What we will do is go to the definition of base ability here, and great, we've actually already got a delegate. This one is actually going to be called on ability learned, and then we'll have to call on ability learn from some method inside here. Now we don't have, I don't think, a learn ability method. So we'll create a new method in the ability basically called notify on learn. So public void notify on learn, and we're just going to call on ability learn. And we don't even need any parameters for that. So now what we can do is, in our ability prerequisite, instead of subscribing to the system event manager, we are going to move this up here, and only in the case where we got a prerequisite ability, then we are going to call the prerequisite ability dot on ability learn plus equals handle ability list changed. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll do minus equals handle ability list changed. Let's go to the definition of that and remove the base ability. We no longer need to perform a check because the ability we subscribed to was the ability we wanted, therefore prerequisite is met is true, and we can call on status updated. First, let's only do that though if the value changed. So let's make a bool original result equals prerequisites met, and then if the new prerequisite met does not equal the original result, then it must have changed because it would have been from false to true, and therefore we're allowed to call on status updated. And here we don't want to check system event manager, we just want to check basically if the ability does not equal null. Okay. And here we also want to check obviously if the prerequisite ability does not equal null. Okay. That's good. Now we are subscribing directly to the ability. So what we want to do is previously where we were sending out the notification that we learned the ability, we want to instead send out the notification through the ability. So for that, we're going to go into the system event manager. And we have ability list changed here. We're going to remove that because nobody needs to use that anymore. That also means we can look for on ability list changed, and we can remove that as well. That'll cause an error because previously we were notifying through there. So here, what we want to do is instead just go new ability dot notify on learn, and the ability will worry about notifying whoever has directly subscribed to it. Here, actually it looks like we may need the system event manager, but we just won't listen to the system event manager in other cases. And here, for the ability objective, we want to listen directly to the ability. And that means that we actually need in the base ability to do onAbilityLearn and actually onAbilityCast as well. So the system event manager has onAbilityUsed. So let's go to the definition of that, find all references. It's called from notify onAbilityUsed. We'll find where that's called, and we will comment it out and go ability as base ability dot notify on ability used. And actually we'll make this on ability used. And then we will make a function called notify on ability used. And we'll call on ability used. And make sure that it's got a capital U there. Perfect. Then here, because this is an ability objective, we will just call base ability dot on ability used. And base ability dot on ability learn. And here, same thing, we will do base ability dot on ability used and base ability dot on ability learn. And then we want to go to update cast count. We want to remove that. We can remove this check as well because it always is the right ability. Then we want to go to update completion count. We want to remove the ability. It's always the right ability, so we don't need to bother with that check. And we can save everything. And now we only have these ones here. This is for the UI manager. So we actually do need the system event manager to handle this one. So what we can do is we can go back into the system event manager. We can re-enable the notify on ability list changed because we won't be listening to it with our swords and such. So we'll re-enable on ability list change there, save that. All our errors will hopefully go away. All right, and now let's load the game again. And we'll load up our chapter 2 girl here. And we'll look at the console log. We don't see anything. We're going to equip this sword here, pause the game, and I still don't see anything in there. Let's just check how long that frame took and see what was happening in that frame. I still felt like there was a little bit of lag there. However, it looks like that lag was mostly attributable to UMA stuff. Let's try that again. We'll run around. Yeah, you know what? That's a lot smoother now. The big sword, it's interesting. It's still like there's still a little bit of lag. But that lag shouldn't be coming from those event system updates since they... It's weird. There actually is still a fair amount of lag coming from that event system update. But it's definitely not as a result of the on ability learn messages. Okay, so let's move on to the TextMesh Pro thing. I'm going to investigate offline a little more about what events might be causing that. In the meantime, though, we have combat text, and I want to take the combat text and I want to make it into TextMesh Pro, and then see if we can reduce or eliminate the lag from that. So we're going to right click here. We're going to create a new UI text, TextMesh Pro. We're going to go into the scene view, set it to 2D, and take a look at that. Now we want this in Liberation Sans bold, size 30. So we're just going to copy these properties over here, set it to size 30. All right, good. And then we basically want this centered like that. And then if we look at this text here, this has got basically an outline and a content size fitter. I'm going to copy this component here. I'm going to go down and I'm going to right click and I'm going to go paste component as new. So we get the content size fitter right there. And then I am going to remove the original text object, so there's nothing left but the TextMesh Pro object. Then I'm going to go into the combat text controller, and I'm going to do a statement here using TMP Pro. Then I'm going to make a serialized field for the TMP text. I'm going to call it TMP Pro text. and this will be a TMP Pro, TextMesh Pro UGUI. I'm going to save that, and next we are going to find all references to that. And basically, you know what? Let's actually do something kind of neat here. We will take this, we will rename that field to that, apply that. It'll change all the references for us. Then we can get rid of the regular text and bring back the TMP Pro text. Just 1 second. Okay, now we should be able to basically just replace the reference in the inspector there. So we'll let that recompile. We'll move that text down into the TMP Pro text field. And now we have a TextMesh Pro combat text. So let's reload the game. And we'll load up our character in the temple here. So looking for our channeler in the Temple of Ancient Energy. And just watching to see if there's any lag again. We will shoot this guy and hope for a crit. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So there was a crit, but I didn't notice like basically any frame drop at all. There was one little frame here that took like slightly longer than usual, but it wasn't basically, just search for font here. If we search for the word font and basically just pull this along and look for any frame that was like, 200 milliseconds or whatever, that lag is pretty much entirely gone. So that was pretty good. We managed to get rid of that lag by replacing some regular text with some TextMesh Pro text. And I think I have another really quick example I can show of a place where we can do that, and it might help as well. So our dialogue system, I noticed occasionally when I was clicking through dialogue really fast that we would end up with like some UI lag. So I'm going to see if I can reproduce that really quickly here. So this guy's got a dialogue, and I'm just going to, there we go. I got one already. Just going to click through it really fast, and right here, that wasn't actually like too horrible. We have a couple of calls, like 28 calls to that cache font text thing here. Let's just keep going through this stuff and see if I can trigger that again, basically. Okay, looks like I'm having triggering it. Having trouble triggering it. Sometimes it's really obvious. Like you'll just be clicking through stuff, and all of a sudden, for like no reason, the UI will just totally lag. And anyway, what usually happens is in those instances when you're checking, it's basically usually in the inspector, these spikes. If you type in the word font, then you'll see like hundreds of calls to the font cache right here. You can see we've got like 108 of them, and sometimes it adds 0.3 seconds. Sometimes it adds a lot more than that. So this is how you can use the Unity profiler to basically help debug any of these spikes in frame rate in your application. Basically drill down exactly what calls are taking a lot of time here. So I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, then don't forget to thumbs up the video, subscribe to the AnyRPG YouTube channel, or just leave a note in the comments. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.